Welcome to Kidmin Backstage, the place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your backstage pass to see the magic or disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I am joined by Brother Kyle. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well. I was just trying to help usher in the spirit a little bit and just drinking a little bit of this Red Bull. Not sponsored yet.
Not sponsored yet.
Yeah. No, doing well. Just busy as always, and just was listening to some John Maxwell podcasts. And
that's
some good stuff. So actually, it was a lot of the stuff we're talking about today. Just been listening to a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, probably overlaps a lot. I've read a lot of his books. So
yeah. And then I was texting Brother Matthew and Brother Aaron because they both are a fan of his stuff, and he had talked about a leadership Bible that he did.
Yes,
and
I have it.
And Brother Aaron texted and said, I literally found this yesterday at Goodwill for $3. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, no.
Yeah, no, and it's good too. It's cool. It's a New King James, I think.
Yeah, he does have, I think, an NIV, and then a New King James, which, New King James is okay. Not too terrible, of course, but I just think the leadership portions of it would be pretty cool. He pulls out stuff from the Bible.
Cool. Yeah. All right, well, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about reset your baseline.
Reset your baseline. So, I ran into this concept a while back. I read something. I used to read a lot about Navy SEALs and stuff. It just really was interesting to me, Special Forces. And then I worked for a Navy SEAL for a while and dragged stories out of him and stuff, And so what I kind of, the premise, I guess, is like leadership and, stepping out in ministry or anything,
right?
Rarely, maybe never happens in comfort.
I would expect no, yeah.
And so that line between ordinary and exceptional or good and great is like where we put our baseline.
Right.
And so, for most people, discomfort, a lot of times, it's kind of like innate in us to stop,
right.
Like when it hurts, you stop.
Right.
But then of course there's the no pain, no gain. And so, but like Navy SEALs, discomfort, you think about all their training, it's crazy, but even just their operations and things they do, and this podcast is not about Navy SEALs, but it's just an example.
Yeah.
Their baseline is comfort. Like that's where they start.
Right.
And so where most people like give up all hope and it's the end of the world and this is crashing down, that's their starting point.
Right. Yeah.
And so anyway, that's just kind of the premise here is like, to lead at a higher level. I think, what if we could reset our baseline?
Right.
Because if we're not growing, then we're not resetting a baseline.
Right, for sure. I just put down some stuff. I believe the line between ordinary and extraordinary lies within our willingness to live in discomfort. We're human beings. We're a creature of comfort. We like to have all the little comfort things of, you just think about, you got this certain pillow or a certain blanket, a certain place you like to sit, and just all these little things. We're creatures of comfort, and we like all these things. And
especially probably even more so as Americans, right?
Oh, I want to tell you right now, not that other countries don't have this, but in my experience of being around the world and being in the military and stuff, what I've noticed is Americans are probably one of the few cultures that have to have all these comfort things that we have, like things we just view as like common all the time. That's not what everybody else has. It's not normal everywhere else. And so we have to be really careful that if we want to just live ordinary and never go above and never achieve anything of like great value, sure, you can just live in that basic comfort area, but anywhere that you want to go that's big, or any kind of big dream that you have, is going to require you to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, you got to stretch, get outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, we need to quit playing it safe all the time. You know, I believe when we play it safe, it shows a lack of faith.
Right.
Especially when it comes to the kingdom and things like that. You know, and I'm not saying like we need to be reckless or anything like that.
Sure.
You know, unless let's just go do whatever. Like quit your job right now and you have a family to take care of and just go. Like you obviously need to be strategic about this.
Yeah.
And I think when we seek discomfort, we must also be purposeful and intentional and prayerful about it. You know, it's not just something, you don't just make a snap decision about something, especially in regards to ministry or leadership in the church without consulting your pastor, without praying about it
absolutely.
And coming up with a plan and figuring things out.
Well, and that kind of leads into our first point, which is identify your current baseline.
Right.
You know, is evaluate, you know, in personal growth, which we talk a lot about on this podcast, even though it's a Kidmin podcast, I think it all applies, you know. But if you, I guess, first of all, if you don't know where you are currently, it's kind of like if you're getting ready to, you know, work out or you have a weight goal or something like that, and you decide you're going to drink sugar-free Red Bull, nasty stuff, then you have to know where you are to set a goal. So then your goal can be more specific too. You know, and of course, or a system, like we talk about systems all the time.
Right. And, you know, I think everybody, and Pastor talked about it this morning in service, everybody wants to please God and obey what he wants them to do. And then the same could be said, I believe everybody wants to achieve big things in life. I don't mean necessarily becoming super rich or super well known or anything like that, but just have like big wins in their life. If you think
something
about
outside of yourself.
Right. And I just think big wins are not found in little challenges. You know,
that's so good.
It's going to take big challenges and really setting yourself out there. And like you said, you got to, if you don't know where your baseline's at the moment, it might be because you haven't looked into it in a while. And in order to get anywhere, you really have to reevaluate yourself on a fairly regular basis and realize, you know, where am I at right now? You know, where do I want to go and how do I get there? Yeah. This is kind of a regular thing that you think about. And in order to get to these, you know, big goals in life, you're going to have to be a little uncomfortable. But eventually that uncomfortableness becomes more comfortable because you get used to it.
Yeah. Well, and you have to become self-aware, I guess. You know, it's like I've been with people or been around people that are just, it seems like they're so unaware of their self, of their, you know, the consequences of their actions, or just maybe even habits they have that I know they wouldn't like, but they just are not even aware that they have them, you know? And so we have to, it's not about being, you know, like self-absorbed, but just being self-aware of like, you know, when you start to feel overwhelmed. I was just thinking about this. I got to be vague. So somebody, I was talking about accomplishing a task, and I was talking to somebody about it recently, and they were like, "Oh man, I don't know if I can because I got to do this and this," and not to belittle anyone, and I'm being very vague, but it was like, you know, I'm pretty busy guy. We're all busy. But it was like on the scale, it just seemed so small. You know, and of course I know that we can always point at everybody else and we feel like we're the busiest. But it just seemed so small, and I thought of this subject even as I thought, you know, where's their baseline? You know? And so we have to set our baseline and like tracking our limits, knowing like where is our breaking point right now, and how can we push that further, you know, extend that.
You know, and one thing I was thinking about, and obviously this is something that most of us in the church world are aware of, and we know this scripture very well, you know, but we always got to remember when we say that I can't or we can't, we must remember that he can.
Yes.
And don't forget the Bible says he is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can think or ask. So in those situations, sometimes we say we can't, and it's true because we're just human beings. But where are we putting our faith in? Where, are we trying to do it all on our own effort or our own ways? Are we forgetting that God is able to do it if we're just going to follow his will and obey him and pray and do these kinds of things? So that's where these reevaluations, I like to call them, I do a daily kind of reevaluation for myself personally, and then I'll do like maybe once a week or once a month, and certain things I'm involved in. So like, for example, my Tuesday night at-home Bible study that I do roughly maybe once every couple of weeks. I kind of look at things and say to myself, like, where can we kind of improve this? If we've had a couple weeks where we've had a lower attendance, why is that happening? Is there anything that I can do to make it better? And so if we're never looking at ourselves and trying to figure out where we can get better, we might forget that we're supposed to rely on God's abilities and God's power to get where we want to go. And if we're just doing it all our own way, that might be our biggest problem.
Yeah. Well, and I guess in tandem with that, I like something you said, like when you look at the attendance, is there anything that I can do about that? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's just like, okay, God, you have to do something. But I think that often we can use excuses. Like if you have a tendency, and I think that good leaders don't have this tendency, but if you have a tendency to blame it on the employee, blame it on the kids, blame it on the software, blame it on the, whatever, fill in the blank. It was because, I have way more respect for the person, like when they missed the shot. Right. They're like, I missed it. Yeah. I blew it. And they're not trying to blame it on the wind or anything, Right. Yeah. And it gives us a responsibility where we can do something about it,
Yeah, I believe John Maxwell said, a great leader takes personal responsibility for his team's failures, basically. Yes. And there was one of the guys that kind of is involved in that, lost the company like over $1 million or something like that. He's the CEO of like all six of, or at the time, I'm in 2019, but at that moment, I think he still is today, but he was the CEO of all of John Maxwell's companies, and he lost John Maxwell over $1 million. Yeah. And he basically says, I could have easily pointed fingers at all kinds of situations or people, but that's not what a great leader does. A great leader takes personal responsibility and says, this was on me. This is something I did wrong. I failed and stuff like that. And so,
and then I think in that same vein, in one of his books at least, he says that the leader takes responsibility for his team's mistakes and gives the team the accolades for the wins success. that the leader might have done. Right. So and I guess we kind of just talked about that a little bit, but the acknowledge excuses was another thing that I had on there. Is sometimes that baseline is protected by a web of justifications and excuses, and it's like, well, this is the reason why I'm this way, and the thing that I try to help people see is like if it is my fault, that's actually good news. Because it means I can do something about it. Right. If it's not my fault, it's like when we say, "Oh, the kids were rowdy today," or whatever. We've all had the Sunday school, at least here in Washington. Yeah,
I'm sure we're the only ones.
We're probably the only ones, but sometimes we have Sunday school, and it's just like, "Oh man, the kids wouldn't listen today," or whatever. And I've been guilty of saying that myself. But what I constantly say, I bring it back to the team and say, "Remember, whatever kind of we can't control the kids, right? And so whatever kind of outcome that we're talking about, or the way that they were acting, we need to look at what did we do that contributed to that. If we can never find that, that's bad news, because now the remote control's in their hand. I mean, we can't do anything about it. Yeah. And so when we take the blame, it also means that we're taking on the ability to do something about it. That's what responsibility, you break that down, responsibility. We take the ability to respond. Right.
Yeah, you really got to look inside yourself. If you don't have the ability at the moment to recognize where you are possibly at fault, because you can't control anybody else's actions, like you're saying.
Yeah.
The only person you can really control is yourself, and even then, you have a hard time sometimes.
That's the hardest to control.
Yeah. And so, quit blaming everybody else, because that's not going to make anything change. The only thing you can do is figure out how you can make it better and make the changes that you can make, and then just be a good leader, and people will follow suit.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next point is shift from comfort seeking to capacity building. So the example that I want to think of in kids ministry or in Sunday school is, I think it was Brother Tyler Hodge talked about this a long time ago. You could have a Sunday school and be so militant and so, I guess you could even say, on top of it, where you have kids sitting with their hands folded, quietly listening to your lesson, and just not moving, not being rowdy, and just so well behaved. But is that the goal? Is that the end goal? Like, yeah, sometimes we wish we had that on some Sundays, but and there's obviously a balance, right?
Yeah.
But we want kids to respond, and we want them to, love Sunday school and everything. And so the shift from, I guess the example I'm kind of saying with this, shift from comfort seeking to capacity building is kind of like embrace the chaos.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's some people I can think of, and I can name them right now, but there's some people that I can think of that wouldn't last in Sunday school.
Oh, man.
Because it's just like, they love kids, but they wouldn't be able to stand the chaotic, the messiness.
We could say they love well-behaved kids.
Yes. Our good friend, Brother Chris Bradshaw, says, if you pray for rain, expect mud. And so that's so good.
So
because
true.
Because we want the rain, we want revival.
Yeah.
Expect some messiness.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I guess just, instead of seeking the comfort of the perfect, quote unquote, Sunday school Sunday, instead, let's bring on the chaos, and let's bring on the kids that are rowdy and nasty, and let's pray them through to the Holy Ghost.
Here's the mindset you need to have. This comes right from the Bible, so don't be mad at Brother Gabe or myself. This is his word here. So James chapter 1 says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience." So you need to be enjoying the fact that you're in discomfort, and there's some chaos going on, because that's what you should expect.
Now,
when
if
you're growing,
if we were doing
better.
this verse in Sunday school, we would talk about diving.
Yeah.
When you're tempted to come up out of the water to breathe, just...
Yeah. I mean, especially when it comes to Sunday school, if you're doing anything in regards to outreach or bringing anybody in and trying to grow your Sunday school, you should expect to have some levels of chaos almost every Sunday, because you're bringing kids in that are in chaotic situations 24/7.
Yes.
We've had some, and I'm sure there's others out there, that they don't smell or look like they've bathed in a while.
Right.
They don't have a filter. They say words that most of us adults that love God would never say. I mean, these kinds of situations that are very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so if you're not in discomfort in your Sunday school, especially, I think that's a sign that's bad, because...
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the pithy saying, no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
It really is true. If you're not expanding, then it doesn't hurt. It's comfortable, and so you're not growing. Yeah,
and we talk about our failures sometimes, of course. I like Brother Booker and his podcast. Every single podcast he does, they talk about their Sunday school. They always talk about one thing that happened that was bad.
Yeah, he just started doing that. That's cool. Yeah.
And so that's the kind of stuff you should expect. I mean, he's got so many kids coming in. Of course, it buzzing in hundreds of kids, but that's when you're growing and you're in the kingdom. You're going to expect to have those days like that, where it's just like borderline. Do we need to call in somebody with straitjackets? There is those weeks where like I kind of feel like we need tranquilizers and straitjackets.
Well, the other thing too with this is when you walk in to Sunday school, mindset is a huge thing, right? And so when you walk into Sunday school on Sunday and you expect that it's going to go perfectly, that all of the kids are going to, the skit guys made a video a long time ago it was about youth ministry, and it was hilarious. It was something like, I can't remember the title, but it was basically it was like, actual, like what youth ministry is actually like versus what the youth leader perceives it. And they're like teaching the lesson. They're acting like the youth, and they're just like, oh, I want to hear what he says next. And just like, over the top. And then the actual, of course, they're not paying attention at all. Yeah. And it's just hilarious, the whole thing.
Oh, my goodness.
And so that if we walk into Sunday school like that, though, like it's going to go perfectly. All the actors are going to know their parts perfect. Nothing's going to go wrong with the script at all. The object lesson is going to go perfectly. Yeah. And the kids are going to be so well behaved. And when it hits altar time, they're going to just run to the altar crying and seeking God. Well, we can hope for that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We can hope for it. But don't expect it. And so I guess all of that to say this is when I'm not talking about being pessimistic. No. Or some people say pessimistic. I'm talking about just understanding that things are going to go wrong and understanding it's going to be hard today. Right. We're doing Sunday school and there's going to be some hard things. And yes, we love what we do, but if we're doing it right, there's going to be some hard spots. There's going to be some bumps. If we expect that, then we don't fall apart when it happens, one. And then when we do have that great Sunday school, man, chalk that off as, that once a year great, awesome Sunday school, where everything went perfect.
Yeah, you should expect challenges when you're in positions of leadership in the church. And it doesn't have to just be children's church. I mean, there's going to be unique challenges with children, of course, but there's going to be unique challenges in any form of leadership in the church. We could name all the different positions of leadership, and you could talk about individual challenges in those areas. It's just, children's church, it's unique. There's challenges we face with children that you don't face with adults necessarily. Well, some adults might act like kids, but sometimes you should feel that discomfort when we set out these goals, whatever your goal is. So for example, if somebody wants to train to run a marathon, it's 26.2 miles. It's like you don't go from sitting on the couch today, then tomorrow you're going to run that marathon. It's just not going to happen. There's a process, of course, and along the way you're going to be uncomfortable in a lot of different places. You go from the couch, it's going to be uncomfortable to run a mile the first time. Then eventually you get okay with that mile, and then it's going to be uncomfortable at 5 miles. But when you finally get to that place of that marathon or whatever, you even say 500 kids in your Sunday school or 200 kids, whatever it is. Yeah. And you can look back and be like, you can appreciate all those little areas too that were challenging and be like, oh man, I'm so thankful that I had that and was able to grow from it and move forward. And like I was saying earlier,
the key is it's worth it.
Oh man. When we have Sunday school like we had, it's been a couple months ago now, where we had those 3 girls get the Holy Ghost in Sunday school. Yeah. It's those moments where you're just like, man, I don't care what we've dealt with today or last week with the kids or whatever. Like, it's those moments where it really just puts everything in perspective. And like, this is what it's all about. Right. This is why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah. It feels amazing when you see that kind of stuff. When we've seen kids that don't regularly come to church. And it's been a few years ago in our August services, we had a young gal get the Holy Ghost that wasn't that frequent in church. I mean, and I don't think she's been back too much since then, but that kind of stuff, you're like, this is what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. So our next point is to sustain the new baseline through rhythms and systems. So I've been on a kick lately about systems, and I think I warned in the last podcast that that we hadn't heard the last of this. But we talked about a little bit before, you have a pretty rigorous morning schedule.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wrote some of that down as just like schedule, put challenges into your schedule, or I guess challenges maybe not the best word, but basically where you're going to stretch.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about it before, but the rubber band is useless just laying there loose. Yep. And its maximum usefulness is when it's stretched to where it's almost going to break, but it's holding everything together. That's the maximum usefulness. And so when we can embrace that discomfort and, step into it instead of shy away from it, that makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah. And so when you talk about the morning routine that I have, so it was years ago, and we talked about it in the podcast before, but years ago I was trying to figure out how could I make more hours in the day. And just to break everybody's hearts, you can't. There's only 24 hours. That's the max there is. Sorry. I know some of us, like
we just lost a bunch of listeners.
Brother Gabe and myself would really love it. We'd like maybe 1 or 2 more hours. That'd be great.
Yes.
But there's just not. And so it's like, how can I find more hours in the day? And so I chose to get less sleep. And some people think I need 10 hours, which is insane. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't think I could sleep 10 hours if I tried. Maybe I could. I don't know. But I just chose. I said, so I'm just going to sleep less. I've been used to getting up early in the mornings, and so I'm a morning person, and so I'm just going to get up earlier.
Right.
And so I don't have to be at work until 8 o'clock, but I get up at 4 a.m. And some mornings I miss my alarm and I don't get up till 5:30. And I'll tell you right now, I'm just
slacker.
I hate that. I tell my wife, I'm like, I didn't get up till 5:30. She's like, oh my goodness, I can't even believe it. That's crazy. You slack. But for me, it's a big deal. Even if I'm a half hour late, it's like I have so many things I try to cram into the morning, which I just recently added to that stuff that I'm trying to get done in the morning.
Yeah, because I think you said before 4:30.
So. Yeah. So it's 4 a.m. and I won't go through the whole list, but I do a lot of different things. Before I even go to work, and then I work an 8-hour day, and
and then you've accomplished so much. And I remember reading this before that most successful people have accomplished more than the average person in a whole day before most people get up.
Yeah. And so that, for me personally, and I'm not saying everybody has to do this, I just feel like, the Bible talks about today is the only day that we're promised. Right. And so I'm going to make sure I'm not wasting any second of this day. And I actually just talked to my wife about this today. I wanted to reevaluate my schedule a little bit, and not necessarily put notifications, but like put my calendar, kind of like you do with yours, where you have this giant schedule, like every 15 minutes is planned out. I don't know if I'm going to get that detailed, but, and I've seen that schedule once before. I think you showed it to me or showed it to somebody else, and I was just like, that's mind blowing. But I still want to put all this stuff on a calendar where it's like, try to figure out my week, because I'm trying to push so many things in these little spaces, and I don't even have the ability to allow there to be 10 or 15 minutes of lapse. I have to go from like this right into that next thing, right. And I'm sure you're the same way. And so I just talked about it with my wife today. I want to get at my calendar, and I'm going to start putting everything in my calendar, not just okay, today I'm doing this and this, but like physically put it in the calendar so that I can look at that every single day and know, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing.
This is what I'm doing.
Yep. So, but it's just, you gotta schedule this stuff. It's got to be intentional. It's got to be on purpose, and it can't just be like, oh, I'll just do it. No,
it's like budgeting. You basically, if you don't budget your money, then you at the end of the week, you're like, where did that $300 go?
Right. If you think you don't have more time, I just want to challenge everybody. I don't know if Samsung people can do this, but everybody with an iPhone, and if you're not Apple style, like, you need to pray through, but
oh boy,
there's this little thing on your phone where you can look and see how much time you've been spending on different things on your phone.
Yes.
So if you think to yourself, I don't really have that much time to fit more in your schedule, I just want you to look. I think it updates every Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, but you can look back at the previous week, or whatever. Just look on that particular thing, and everybody that has an iPhone knows what that is. It's your screen time. Yeah. And I know some of you ignore it or try to delete it.
Android has it too.
Yeah. So just look at that and say to myself, wow, I've spent 16 hours on Pinterest this week. And I'm just making up numbers, of course. Or I've spent 12 hours on Facebook and 10 hours, you know what I mean? And you start realizing, wow, I have a lot more time than I realize. And I just want to encourage people, don't waste your time, because we're only given today. I mean, when you pass on from this life, it would be terrible to have a bunch of regret because you wasted the time you were given. And so that's how you can squeeze and stretch yourself and challenge yourself, is look at your schedule and try to plan it out and just push as many things into it as you possibly can. And you're going to be better for it. I promise.
Well, and that's, before we wrap up here, I wanted to mention this is, I do project management, and so I do a lot of scheduling. And so there's these project schedules that we'll make, and there's various different softwares, but they have what's called a baseline. And so in a project schedule, there's all kinds of things where you can crash the schedule, which means you throw more money at it, or you throw more manpower at it, or something. And then there's something called float, and this is where there's room, basically, in your budget. There's room in your schedule, but there's the baseline. And so a lot of times in the project schedule, there's what's called a critical path, and the critical path, if something breaks in the critical path, it's going to extend your project timeline. And so there's a critical path where there's float all around that, and there's things that you can do simultaneously or out of sequence, but as long as you don't affect that critical path. Well, sometimes, invariably, that does get affected, and that's where you come back to the baseline, and you say, where are we at? Where are we compared to where we, what we started this idea?
Right.
And so if we can make, and sometimes it's minuscule, like you said, all these things you're trying to push forward, sometimes you got 15 minutes that you can spend on it because of the other priorities. But the key is every day spending that 15 minutes.
Right.
And so we reference John Maxwell a lot. He recently, in an interview, he mentioned something about, I might not get all of it correct, but so he's written, I don't know, I was trying to figure out how many books he wrote and how many I read, and it's something crazy. He's written either like 97 or 106 or something like
all
that.
All bestsellers.
Yeah, they're almost all, yeah. And I've read, I think, 60 something of them, of his books. And so I've read a lot of his books. But he talked about being an author, and I might get one of these wrong, but I think it's these things. He said, as an author, I do 3 things every day. I think, I file, and I write.
Yeah.
And so thinking, he has a whole, like he has a book on thinking for a change. So when he says think, he's talking about like where some people would call it meditate, but he actually, at one time had in his office, he had a thinking chair. Like this is where he just sits and thinks. Yeah. And then, so it's not just, thinking like, duh, everybody thinks. But, and then filing is something that he started years and years ago. He started filing like quotes or little stories or whatever. So he uses them all throughout his books. Yeah. And then writing. So he said people, I can't remember how he said it, but people ask him, like, so you do that every day? He's like, every day. And what do you mean by every day? He's like, I don't know how more simple I can just put it. Every day. What about on your birthday? Every day. What about on Christmas? Every day. Yep. And in the interview, he said, this morning I got up, I thought, and I wrote a few pages, and I filed. And so, and he's 70-something years old.
And he's 74.
Something like that, yeah. And so he's been doing that since he was like, I think 20. So the accumulation of that. Massive. So if we do all of these things to increase our baseline, even in 1 year, if you look back and it's like, that was my baseline. And I guess the whole reason that I titled this baseline and the thought going back to the Navy SEALs and their baseline is I think that all of us in ministry will have those peaks that we'll hit where it's like we're super productive.
Yeah.
And it's fine. We should have peaks, I think. But it's kind of like when you spring up and you go back down to whatever the baseline is. Mm-hmm. And so I want my peaks to keep getting higher.
Yeah.
But I want my baseline to keep getting higher.
As well.
You know, so that the difference maybe isn't that much different because the baseline's climbing as well.
Yeah, I think John Maxwell also said that he doesn't do anything that doesn't add value to his life. Like everything he does is like he wants to be better at whatever, and so all those things he does throughout the day is a way to add value to his life and to others. And like that thinking thing, he says that's the first thing he does. He sits in his chair wherever. I think when I heard it, he was like in his living room or his office too. Yeah. But he sits there for like 10 or 15 minutes maybe, or 5. He just thinks about, okay, what am I going to do today? What am I doing tomorrow? Where do I want to be at the end of this day? What are the things I have to get done? Mm-hmm. Like he's intentional about it. And then he still cuts it. He reads articles and he still cuts them out and puts them in the and stuff like that. And I think there's so much value in that. It's like, I don't want to do anything that's not adding value to my life, whether it be not just myself, but like my family, my children, my wife, my church. I want to make sure that I'm not wasting things. I'm not saying you shouldn't have hobbies. I mean, we all have hobbies. Those are good things to have. But even those hobbies should be things that are adding value to yourself. Yeah. Even if it's, that hobby is, giving you a little bit of a joy or giving you a break to relax. A release,
a relief out of, maybe stressful
Right, for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 or whatever it is. Some people's hobbies are reading. And like, I know, Brother Gabe, you read more than most of us do. And so everything you do should be adding value to your life. And if it's not, like, why are you doing it?
Yeah. Yeah, because, you're not increasing that baseline.
Yep.
All right, well, we better wrap up. So,
brother, we're way over time.
We're way over time and got other things to do. So I think that's going to be a wrap right there. We got some suggested podcasts we'll go through real quick. If you want to see this on YouTube, Kidmin Backstage, or the official channel name is @Gabe-Baker. Some other podcasts, Apostolic Children's Ministry 2.0 with Brother Philip Booker.
My second favorite.
Apostolic Children's Network with Brother Chris Bradshaw. Growing Up with Papa with Brother Jason Ashley. Sunday School Minute with Brother Eric Stender. Truism and Sunday School Junkie with Brother James Pelletier. These are all great podcasts. All good. Great friends of ours. So go check them out and continue. We'll see you back here next Friday.
Yes, sir. Increase your baseline.
That's a wrap. All right.